storms moved through our area, and 2 earthquakes rattled northern New Jersey. Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg is following it all. Lee.
Thunderstorms and earthquakes tonight. Unbelievable, right? This one was over northern New Jersey. Considered a minor quake. It's a magnitude 2.3. Now, generally that's not felt, but this was a shallow quake and certainly was felt across parts of New Jersey. It happened just before 5:15. A short way from White Meadow Lake, that's just over a half mile, and again, the depth was only 3 miles. Not surprising to see it near the active Ramapo Fault in northern New Jersey, and our earthquake detection picked it right up. And we have a viewer that lives right in White Meadow Lake, and she said her house just shook, and there it is right there. And then there was an aftershock, 1.7 magnitude, and that wasn't far from Lake Telemark. So things are quiet now. We'll have to wait and see if there
After a powerful 6.6 magnitude earthquake in southwestern China. The quake hit around 1 p.m. local time today. The shaking triggered landslides and damaged homes, and it also knocked out power during the worst heat wave the area has seen in 60 years.
Overnight, deadly violence in Baghdad. A culmination of the long-running power struggle between rival Shiite groups and political tension as Iraq's leaders remain deadlocked on forming a government. Powerful cleric Muqtada al-Sadr is using the country's capital as his front line, armed supporters taking to the streets, firing rifles and rocket launchers. After al-Sadr threatened to resign from politics, protesters loyal to al-Sadr breaching the government palace gates, toppling cement barriers, gunfire rippling through the streets. That led to the deaths of at least 30 people, according to the Associated Press. But tonight,
أنا أقول الآن أمشي وطأطئ الرأس وأنا أعتذر للشعب العراقي الذي هو المتضرر الوحيد مما يحدث.
The Iraqi Shia leader calling for an end to the unrest.
أنا لا زلت مؤمن أن التيار منضبط ومطيع، ولذلك خلال 60 دقيقة إذا لم ينسحب حتى من الاعتصام أمام البرلمان فأنا أبرأ حتى من التيار.
The violence and eventual retreat proving al-Sadr's influence.
على أمر السيد الخير صدر انسحبنا.
And the reality that danger could soon strike again.
In Iraqi Arabic, it's Allah la yarja'ha al-ayyam, which means may God never bring back those days.
Al-Sadr emerged as a symbol of resistance against the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, using nationalist rhetoric steeped in religion to win over some of Iraq's most impoverished and unemployed populations. Legal sociologist Ruba Al-Hassani specializes in Iraq relations, and she knows all too well that this is far from over.
What does this kind of violence and turmoil do to everyday citizens in Iraq?
It creates a culture of fear.
And a new election could still take place to determine which party will take control of the embattled region.
Many Iraqis have lost faith in the election and the electoral system, so who's going to hold who accountable?
But for now, peace in the green zone.
At least now some Iraqis can breathe, because last night was very frightening.
Now, as the crippling cost of a living crisis continues to bite the pockets of Bangladeshi citizens, protests rage unabated across the country. Bangladesh has been caught in a quagmire economic crisis and has sought a bailout from the International Monetary Fund. Thousands have hit the streets in several parts of Bangladesh over power outages and rising cost of living. Protests continued for a third day in a row. Thousands of protesters broke through a police cordon in the city, sloganeering against the current government and its alleged economic mismanagement. Amid a worsening financial crisis, the government of Bangladesh increased fuel prices by 52% earlier this month. Frequent power cuts, hike in electricity prices have also added to the woes of the public. Disgruntled citizens have launched massive protests ever since. Angry mobs heckle politicians on the streets, attack them with sticks and stones. In a bid to allay public anger, the Bangladeshi government has now reduced the cost of fuel by 4%. However, this has done little to assuage the people of Bangladesh, where most people belong to economically weaker sections.
Winter is fast approaching, and as energy prices continue to increase across Europe, so do the protests. From the Czech Republic, where tens of thousands took to the streets calling for an end to NATO membership, to Germany, where activists tried to block the entrance of a weapons plant in protest of their government's lethal support for Ukraine. The latest demonstrations are fueling predictions that soaring civil unrest will become the new normal as inflation and energy costs continue to run rampant. The estimated 70,000 protesters in Prague took it a step further, calling for their government to put the Czech Republic first and to stop blindly pledging their membership to the EU and NATO when they argue it's not in the best interest of the people in their country. In the past, the Czech Republic has relied on Russia for nearly all of its natural gas supplies. But now that it's following in the footsteps of its EU neighbors by turning its back on Moscow's resources, energy prices have soared, and inflation in the country is expected to hit 20% by the end of the year. While the nation's prime minister condemned the protesters, claiming they were pro-Russian and against the interest of the Czech Republic, the individuals who took to the streets argued it was because of their fight for their country that they want military neutrality and direct talks with Russia on energy supplies. They accused the current Czech government of putting Ukraine first, with one banner reading, "The best for Ukrainians and 2 sweaters for us." So is this a sign of what's to come? And how likely are soaring cost of fuel unrest across Europe this winter? Well, some analysts are now warning it's more likely than ever, especially in countries like Germany, where inflation is nearly at 50-year highs, and the inflation relief package just passed by the German government is seen as a temporary answer to a serious long-term problem.
The Czech Republic experienced a Saturday that could still be in store for Germany. Tens of thousands of people demonstrated in Prague against rising energy prices and the Czech government. Right-wing extremist parties and the far-left Communist Party had mutually called for the rally.
That problem is so massive that it stands to bring opposing parties together, which is exactly what has happened in the Czech Republic, where common frustration with the government and its policies has made it possible to overcome differences of opinion from right-wing to left. And in the UK, reports say police are already bracing for a long winter of civil unrest as their strategy for the coming months centers around how to respond to the rising crime they are predicting as they fear economic turmoil will be on the rise.
Drawn up with input from the National Police Chiefs Council, the document goes on to say that a more complex and unpredictable risk is the chance of greater civil unrest as a response to prolonged and painful economic pressure.
It has already gotten so bad that estimates are showing that by January, it will cost more to stay home in the UK at around £30 for food and electricity than it would to vacation on a cruise, which runs around £19 per day. And that's just the beginning, with some analysts warning that mass civil unrest could be seen well beyond Europe as politicians continue to ignore the voices of the people who are struggling to survive.